Hello, welcome back, Fred in the Shed. In this video we're going to be having a closer look at this night vision monocular. This night scope has the capability of recording video and still images, and I'll be showing you some of that footage in just a moment. But first, let's have a look at the details and the price. I picked mine up from Amazon. It was on one of those price deals, but typically these sell for around about £130. Still under different makes. Mine's a BOBLOV, if you like, and a T2 and other makes. Just check out the deal because it seems that you get different capacity TF cards included. I got a 16 gig with mine, but some are now offering 32 gig. You may not be keen on the camouflage paint design, but fortunately it is available in just black. Quickly go over the specs. The main objective lens is 30mm. It has a built-in infrared illumination torch and it can see up to 150 yards in fully dark. There's a 5x optical zoom which is fixed, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Additionally, there is an 8x digital zoom, and in theory that gives you up to a maximum of ×40 magnification. The built-in lithium-ion battery, 3.7 volts, it's removable. You're going to get, they reckon, about 2 hours usage if you don't use the infrared illuminator. If you do use the infrared torch, it drops down to about an hour, and it charges up via a USB. Any 5-volt adapter is all you need. At the eyepiece end, you have quite a sharp 1.5-inch colour TFT view screen. Straight out the box, the scope looks quite chunky and you'd think it was heavy, but in fact it's quite light. It's all plastic construction. I'd guess at about 350 to 400 grams. I didn't stick it on the scales. Also in the box you get a couple of lens caps, which is nice, but they're not attached to the scope itself, and I think you could lose them quite easily. The 5-volt USB chart lead is pretty standard. You've probably got one of these lying about anyway. And then finally you get a little sort of carrying case, which is, yeah, absolutely fine. Just one thing worth noting, as a device you're going to be using outside, I wouldn't say this is 100% waterproof, splashproof maybe. And the reason I say that is the connectivity and the TF card are under this little rubber flap here. It does snap back quite tightly, but I wouldn't say that is completely waterproof. However, a good thing is the 3.7 volt lithium-ion battery is removable, so if you were going to do an extended viewing period, you could always charge yourself up a spare. The focus ring on the end of the main objective lens, yeah, it's very smooth and it is very linear, which is a good thing because this scope does have a very narrow depth of field, so you're going to be adjusting that focus quite regularly. And finally, on the bottom is a standard tripod screw socket. The scope itself, it sits well in the hand, a bit like using an old-fashioned camcorder. As far as the controls are concerned on the top here, they're not illuminated and they're not even very clearly marked, so you have to memorise these before you go out and start using it. I kind of think they could have done a little bit better here. Right, let's see how the scope does at night. This footage you're looking at here, this is shot with a standard camcorder. And it's a very, very dark night, and as we move away from the cottage you can see the light drops off and it is completely black when I look out across this field. And here's the same pan now with the night scope. The first thing you notice is the lack of resolution. It's not as high as the camcorder. This is recording without the infrared illumination switched on. It automatically comes on just here and then everything goes black and white, and now it is using the infrared torch on the scope itself. Looking across the fence into the field, this was completely black to my eyes and the camcorder, and the scope does quite well here. Everything is illuminated. The little infrared torch certainly stretching right across this field to the far fence, and I couldn't see this rabbit at all until I looked through the scope itself. Now, one thing that I will say, I don't particularly like that ×5 fixed magnification is a bit of a pain because your depth of field is very narrow, and that means that you have to keep manually adjusting the focus. I'm looking a little bit further afield now, out to sea. These little lights are gas platforms and wind turbines. They're about 15 kilometres out to sea. I couldn't see the division between the sea and the sky to my naked eye, but the scope has managed to pick that up quite well. And then moving back into the field here, as you can see, I'm having to adjust the focus myself manually, and it's just a shame that that 5x zoom is just a little bit too magnified. back on the camcorder again and another night, just looking out of the back door of this cottage here, and yeah, once again, this is all I could see of the garden. It is completely black. I couldn't see a thing. And now I'll show you the same scene with the night scope, and it is quite impressive. And here we are, the same scene shot with the night scope. Now once again, that fixed 5x zoom is a bit of a pain. It makes using the scope indoors practically impossible, unfortunately. Walking outside here, once again completely black, and then that infrared illumination torch kicks in, boom, and suddenly you can see everything. No autofocus, of course, so you have to do it manually, but once you get the focus adjusted correctly, the image is pretty sharp. It is pretty clear. You need a steady hand because of that 5x zoom, but you can certainly see everything in the garden. And bearing in mind this was completely dark to my own eyes, so I think at this price point, if you use the scope carefully, I got to say the image quality is pretty good. Couple of things worth mentioning: the scope will record in normal daylight, but the lens hasn't got any UV filtration, so it means all the colours are a little bit mixed up, and also it's low quality. The scope will take pictures as well, but they seem just to be captures from the video feed, and they're very low resolution, so you're probably not going to bother with that. And I didn't notice that it recorded any audio as well. I think it is purely just optical. Final point is that ×40 magnification with the 8x digital zoom is completely useless because it just zooms into the CMOS sensor and everything becomes very pixelated. No, overall, I would give this about 7 out of 10. It's such a shame that the standard magnification at ×5 is just a little bit too strong to use indoors. If it was a 1:1, it would be perfect. But when you do your research, unfortunately, they all seem to have this high fixed magnification zoom. And that's it. That's the end of the review. I hope it's helpful. Please give me the thumbs up if it was. I will leave a link to Amazon in the description. But like I said before, just make sure you go and check what you're getting for your money because the spec seems to change. But as for now, as always, thanks for watching. Cheers, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Stay safe.